portraying your role in The Exorcist?
Look, I'm a lifelong horror fan. I saw the original Exorcist as a child. It traumatized me for weeks. When I heard that they were turning The Exorcist into a TV show and they were looking for a writer, I said that's a terrible idea. Please don't do that. You're never going to tell that story better. You're only going to tell it longer. But I went into the rights holders and I kind of aggressively pitched, if you guys don't want to tell the same story about Reagan and Father Merrin and Father Karras, if you want to tell a brand new story with a brand new group of characters that takes place in the same universe, but 40 years later, so you're not writing the original film out of existence, you're not saying this story never took place, you're just exploring what does demonic possession look like in 2016? What does an exorcism look like after seeing exorcisms in pop culture for 40 years? What is it like following an American family over the course of 10 hours and watching that family fall apart when they're attacked by this supernatural force, as opposed to kind of trying to cram all that into 90 minutes? Those were kind of the things that appealed to me and really drew me to the project, and that's kind of been our guiding philosophy going forward, is to just tell something that's respectful of what came before, but try to blaze our own trail, try to create something new that kind of stands on its own 2 feet, instead of just a sort of parade of homages and tipping the hat to the original.
Right. First of all, The Exorcist will be the new version of the original in 1971. Then what changed and it became a TV series?
Well, we had the rights holders. Morgan Creek had the rights to William Peter Blatty's novel, The Exorcist, and they wanted to. The original plan, I think, before I came on board with a different showrunner, the original plan was to kind of tell the same story, and I basically pitched them. This is 3 years ago, so Fargo didn't exist at the time, but I basically pitched them the horror version of Fargo, where it takes place in the same universe as the movie you know and love, and it has the same basic tone, and we're tackling the same themes of faith and spirituality and good versus evil. So hopefully, if you like the original film, that you will also like the television show. You will say it will feel familiar to you, but at the same time, it's not a story where you already know the ending of it. This is a brand new story with a brand new cast of characters, and so that's a huge part of the appeal, is we don't have to kind of follow in the footsteps and kind of stick to a script that everyone in America already knows the ending of that particular story. It gives us the chance to really surprise audiences and do something fresh and new.
What's interesting is having the 2 priests, which the first movie did so well, but the biggest difference is Father Marcus is the exact opposite of Mary. He's an accomplished. He's kind of a man without a country in a lot of ways, and then Father Tomas is a total innocent. But he's trying to find what his calling is. Talk about kind of developing those 2 characters. And to make them distinct, and kudos for making him a Latino, by the way, which is
thank you. We knew that we wanted 2 priests, obviously, a young and an old, but it didn't appeal. There was no appeal in kind of using the exact same archetype, so we had to look for new ways we can kind of spin these characters, and also just what appeals. What's appealing about this character, where you could tell stories about him not just for 10 episodes in this first season, but maybe for 6 or 7 seasons if the show is a hit? Like, what makes this someone you would want to follow on a journey? So the idea of creating a Father Marcus who's sort of a James Bond figure. He's very much a man without a country, a bit of a soldier of fortune, someone who has the Catholic Church has turned their back on him in a way. He is kind of their dirty little secret that they would prefer to forget, and he's kind of gone rogue a little bit and is living off the grid and continuing this fight. And then contrasting that with someone like Tomas, who is, Tomas is basically your perfect priest, where he's compassionate and he's he's someone you would trust with your deepest, darkest secret, and all he wants to do is help the people around him, but at the same time he's dangerously naive. He doesn't believe in these things. If you come to him and start talking about demonic possession, he's going to explain, the concept of demons are metaphors. These aren't actual physical, tangible beings to be afraid of, and obviously Tomas is learning very quickly that he was wrong about the world, and so he can really serve as our entry point for the audience. He can be our eyes and ears as we're kind of introduced to this larger world.
Yeah, it's awesome. Good cast.
when it comes to the seasonal structure for The Exorcist, are you guys planning on concentrating on the Rand family for the first season, or are you planning on breaking it up as you go along?
No. My original pitch was that every season is going to be a self-contained story from beginning to end. It's not an anthology show like American Horror Story where we're going to reset. The characters who survive this first season, you will see them again, hopefully in future seasons. So it is an ongoing story, but I wanted every season to be its own sort of case. I think if you try to do The Exorcist as a Monster of the Week show, and every week they're doing a different exorcism, halfway through the season you would run out of stories to tell, and you'd be off. Marcus and Tomas would be off investigating the Jersey Devil or UFO sightings or something like that, and then it would just turn into another X-Files clone, and the world has enough of those. So the goal was let's dive in. Let's make sure this first season has a beginning, middle, and an end. So by the end of this season, you will get kind of a definitive answer to the possession of Casey Rance, and then if audiences respond, we'll see where we go from there. If we're lucky enough to get a second season, I've got a lot of big ideas.
So a lot of Hollywood's exorcism revolves around Christianity. You always see it from Christianity's angle. In terms of like researching behind The Exorcist, the TV show and stuff, do you ever look at like other religions or other cultural groups that deal with exorcism?
We do, and that's actually something that's going to be explored a lot in the show going forward. Not tomorrow's episode, but episode 4, which is a week from tomorrow. You're going to see an exorcism performed by someone who is not a Catholic priest. We're going to start expanding that world and saying, the mythology of our show is that there is a secret war going on, that evil has already invaded, they're already among us, they have their own plans, they have their own agenda, and so that's not an evil that's focused on just fighting one religion. It's good versus evil, and so I think as the show goes on, I think that's part of the fun is starting to say, what does an exorcism look like if it's performed by a Santeria priest? What does it look like if it's performed by a nun? What does it look like if it's performed by a Buddhist monk? Do these different religions have different methods of fighting the same thing? And can our heroes kind of draw from those different areas to improve their skills? To me, it just gives you the ability to tell new sorts of stories.
Time for one more question.
Okay. The thing that's also appealing to me is it's a little more psychological. It doesn't have to hit you over the head because you have more than 2 hours to tell a story.
Yes.
And I like that. And like, I'm not going to be specific, but your version of the original Captain Howdy can be seen more by the possessed person's viewpoint.
Sure.
I like that aspect of it too, and we can kind of see that. And in the subway, I won't give too much, but I did notice there was a subtle change in his clothing.
Oh, it gets worse.
I would
Trust me,
think so.
It gets worse. Yeah, that's part of the fun. Is as people saw in the pilot, we definitely have homages to the original film. We have tubular bells. We have the head spin. We have the hat. There's a couple things in there that you would expect to see in a TV show called The Exorcist. But part of the fun moving forward, now that hopefully we have our own audience who's not tuning in just because of the name, they're hopefully tuning in because they now care about the characters or they want to see where the story goes. So part of the fun is we're now reaching the point in the series where we can start to be our own show. We can start to introduce our own wrinkles to the mythology and start to kind of build on the world of The Exorcist instead of sort of just referencing what has come before. So that we have a lot of that coming up in tomorrow's episode, and it only gets bigger from there.
Excellent. I've seen the first 3 and they're pretty good.
Oh,